Where Paraguay actually is? Why is this often overlooked nation suddenly becoming a choice for a second residency? How does one actually nail down a temporary permit, permanent residency, or even citizenship here? In this video, we're going to answer all those questions and walk you through the entire Paraguay residency and immigration system step by step. First off, let's get Paraguay located on the map. It's a landlocked South American nation, nestled right up against Bolivia, Brazil, and Argentina. Its capital and largest city is Asunción. The Paraguay River literally splits the country into eastern and western regions, creating distinct biomes and cultural zones. Most of the population is concentrated around Asunción and the east, with a strong Guarani heritage that remains absolutely central to the language and culture. While it might not be as well known as its neighbors, Paraguay has recently become an increasingly popular destination for expats, digital nomads, and retirees. Data from 2022 showed that approximately 156,000 foreigners live there permanently, making up about 2.1% of the total population. So, what's making Paraguay so attractive to foreign residents? One of the biggest draws has to be Paraguay's territorial tax system. If you become a resident living in Paraguay, the income you earn from outside the country, think remote work for a foreign company, online businesses, or pensions, is generally taxed at 0%. Even income earned within Paraguay is taxed at a simple, flat rate, typically around 10%. Plus, Paraguay doesn't tax worldwide assets or inheritances, which many people see as a strong advantage for wealth preservation. Beyond the taxes, Paraguay offers a great deal to praise. The country routinely ranks among the world's most affordable places to live, especially when we talk about the cost of housing, groceries, and utilities. Many newcomers really value the slower, more traditional pace of life compared to the rush of crowded megacities. It's a peaceful, stable nation that also boasts incredible, undeveloped nature, stretching from the famed Pantanal wetlands in the north down to the rolling hills and rivers of the south. Another incredibly attractive feature is that obtaining temporary or permanent residency in Paraguay is known for being a relatively fast and straightforward process. The requirements are often far less complex than in many other countries, making it a highly appealing option for those seeking a Plan B residency or just a quicker path to settling down. Take the temporary residency program, for example. This allows foreigners to legally reside for at least 2 years and is one of the few globally that doesn't heavily scrutinize your financial capacity, provided you have your basic documents in order. If you can physically be present in Paraguay and have simple documents like a valid passport, birth certificate, and police clearance, you have a very high probability of success. Of course, individual cases vary. If some of your international paperwork isn't perfectly pristine, you might be asked for additional documents, like university diplomas or proof of funds. That's why consulting an immigration professional is always highly recommended before you travel. But generally, for most people who can visit Paraguay visa-free, like most Westerners, obtaining this temporary permit is overwhelmingly likely. We're talking about a 95% probability. For nationalities that do require a visa to enter Paraguay, the main hurdle tends to be clearing that initial entry visa. After that, the temporary residency process usually proceeds smoothly. Depending on your background, you may need to apply through special pathways, such as those for students, workers, and retirees. The Paraguay Temporary Residence Permit for Retirees is one of the most popular retirement programs in South America. Before 2022, it granted permanent residency, but since then, it has been converted to a temporary residence permit. This path requires applicants to demonstrate stable, passive income equivalent to 100 times the local minimum wage, which currently translates to around $1,300 per month. Whether you enter through the retirement pathway or any other temporary permit, the initial validity period is 2 years. After those 2 years, you become eligible to apply for Paraguay's permanent residency. Theoretically, you can even obtain permanent residency without continuously residing in Paraguay. How? Provided you simply log into Paraguay once a year, because you can't be absent for more than 12 consecutive months, and can demonstrate sufficient economic ties to the country, things like employment, assets, or tax payments, you qualify to apply for permanent residency. Speaking of permanent residency, you may have heard of the famous Permanent Residency by Saving program, where depositing about $5,000 granted permanent residency. That program was terminated in 2022. Currently, the most direct path is the Paraguay Permanent Residency by Investment program. This requires you to establish a company and provide a credible business plan demonstrating that you will gradually invest at least $70,000 into the company over 10 years, all while creating job positions. This pathway grants you quick eligibility for permanent residency. Compared to similar Latin American programs, Paraguay's investment residency program offers three distinct advantages. First, low investment, quick acquisition. The required investment amount is relatively low, and residency can be obtained quickly. The whole process typically takes a minimum of 45 days and rarely goes past 3 months. Second, minimal physical residence required. If you're not going for naturalization, maintaining the status is minimal. You are only obligated to visit Paraguay once every 3 years and renew your card every 10 years. Third, anonymity. The permanent residency card does not state the holder's nationality, only their place of birth and name. If you genuinely live in Paraguay, you might eventually consider applying for citizenship. To obtain it, permanent residents must continue living in the country for an additional 3 years. During these 3 years, you have to prove genuine residency, establishing real ties through living, working, and paying taxes. Crucially, unlike the minimal presence required for permanent residency, you can't just visit once 3 years. You must spend a minimum of 183 days per year in Paraguay. You also have to demonstrate self-sufficiency and show a basic knowledge of Spanish or Guarani, as well as Paraguay's history, geography, and politics. Paraguayan citizenship hasn't historically been a super popular choice for foreigners because, with the exception of specific countries like Italy and Spain, due to bilateral treaties, Paraguay does not recognize dual citizenship. The passport, while useful, also isn't top-ranked. It sits at 31st globally, allowing visa-free travel to 148 countries. However, if you plan to live and run a business within the South American region, the Paraguayan passport becomes a highly viable option. Paraguay is a member state of Mercosur, the Southern Common Market. Citizens of Mercosur member states can freely work and live in any other member state. After just 2 years of continuous residence and proof of financial means, they can directly obtain permanent residency in that country. Therefore, holding Paraguayan status offers significant convenience for living and conducting business throughout South America. The Paraguay Permanent Residency by Investment Program stands as one of the most well-known residency by investment schemes in South America. It's a clear pathway for foreign investors to grab permanent residency, giving you the freedom to live, work, and study in the country simply by setting up a company, committing to inject a total of $70,000 over a 10-year period, and creating some local jobs. To even begin to understand this program, we have to talk about SUES, that stands for the Unified System for Opening and Closing Companies, Sistema Unificado de Apertura y Cierre de Empresas. This is the key regulatory body the Paraguayan government established back in 2013. SUES acts as a one-stop service platform, utilizing a single electronic system to centralize and streamline procedures that previously required separate handling by multiple government agencies. This simplifies and accelerates the processes of company registration, opening, formalization, and eventual closing in Paraguay. Here's the critical link. Overseas managers of companies registered with SUES are directly eligible to apply for Paraguayan permanent residency. So, the core mission of this entire permanent residency program is for you, the foreigner, to successfully found a company and get it registered with SUES. To start the SUES registration, the company's management needs to have a clean criminal record and must commit to investing at least 300 million Paraguayan Guarani, or the equivalent of $70,000. This is the financial base that gets the ball rolling. Now, don't worry, you don't have to pay that $70,000 up front. It's an ongoing commitment. You just need to provide a credible business plan that clearly demonstrates you will gradually invest that amount within a decade. Even more important, your plan must show that your company will successfully develop in Paraguay over those 10 years. Once that plan is approved, your company qualifies to join SUES. This method is genuinely considered one of the fastest and lowest cost ways to secure permanent residency in all of Latin America. Seriously, the entire process from entering Paraguay and establishing the company to filing the visa application and finally getting that permanent residency typically takes no more than 3 months and can often be wrapped up in as quickly as 45 days. Unlike similar programs in many other countries, the Paraguay Permanent Residency Program only grants permanent status to the main applicant initially. However, your relatives are not left behind. Your spouse, unmarried siblings, minor children, and financially dependent children under the age of 30 can all receive Paraguay temporary residency through you. Crucially, These dependents are legally entitled to apply for permanent residency after 2 years of residence in the country. One of the best parts about this program? You are not required to reside in Paraguay continuously. Theoretically, you only need to log into Paraguay once every 3 years and renew your permanent residency card once every 10 years to maintain your status. However, here's the catch. You are genuinely required to operate the company. Once your company becomes a SUACE member, a representative from the organization will periodically supervise its activities. If your company's development significantly deviates from your original business plan, SUACE will conduct a review, which could potentially lead to the revocation of your permanent residency. The only way out of that 10-year investment commitment is if you successfully become a Paraguayan citizen, which requires 3 consecutive years of legal residency. While that $70,000 investment isn't paid all at once, be aware that the initial costs associated with the entire residency process, including application forms, company creation, and government fees, will typically require an initial outlay of at least $14,000. This initial outlay is considered part of your total committed investment. There is a separate, special route, though not in the main law. The Paraguayan National Institute for Audiovisual has a special provision. If you invest $40,000 in a local film project and can demonstrate at least $80,000 in a bank account, you may obtain immediate permanent residency in a single trip. The entire application process, whether you do it in one trip or several, has 2 main phases. First, you must complete the company registration with SUACE. Second, you officially apply for permanent residency using the foreign investor certificate that SUACE issues. That initial SUACE registration step requires you to kick off by determining your business direction and creating a convincing business plan that outlines exactly how you'll invest the required $70,000. Once the plan is approved, you submit all your necessary application documents directly to SUACE. While you could technically complete this whole journey independently, we highly recommend the assistance of an immigration lawyer to speed things up and simplify the paperwork. If you're not in Paraguay, you can even carry out much of the initial process remotely using a power of attorney. If your business plan gets the green light, you'll be issued an investor certificate from SUACE. This is your golden ticket, the official document that allows you to apply for permanent residency. At this point, you'll gather all your other required documents, police clearances, birth certificates, etc., and submit the application either at a Paraguayan consulate abroad or through your lawyer to the Department of Immigration within Paraguay. The waiting time for the permanent residency card generally runs from 45 to 90 days. Since this is Latin America, patience is key, which is another great reason to have a skilled immigration lawyer on your side. They're often the ones who can help accelerate the process. The final step is collecting your Paraguay identity card, known as the cedula. This card formally confirms your status as a permanent resident and gives you full rights. You can open bank accounts, buy real estate, and start receiving tax benefits. You must travel to Paraguay in person to collect the card, as it requires a final in-person interview to finalize the documents. Finally, within 45 days of receiving your permanent residency status, you must, with the help of a SUACE representative, formally establish your company in Paraguay according to your business plan and begin local commercial activities. Paraguay permanent residency is valid indefinitely, but if you choose not to apply for citizenship, you will need to renew the physical card once every 10 years. Unlike many countries that offer a specific, standalone retirement visa, Paraguay does not have such a program. Instead, qualifying retirees typically apply for temporary residency through a dedicated, official pathway for pensioners. They call it Residencia Permanente para Jubilados y Pensionados. This is a fantastic route because it's specifically designed to help applicants secure temporary residency later on after you've demonstrated a stable, ongoing source of lifelong income. So, what's the financial hurdle? The main requirement is proving a stable passive income equivalent to 100 times the local minimum wage. For 2025, you're looking at a minimum monthly income of no less than 7,015,600 guaranis, which is roughly $1,300. Though keep in mind, this figure will change when the national minimum wage adjusts. Here's the key distinction. That income must come from a verifiable and stable source, like a government pension, social security benefits, or a private pension scheme. Crucially, income from employment, running a business, or investments generally doesn't qualify under this specific retirement category. One significant advantage to retirees is that Paraguay doesn't enforce a strict age limit for this application. As long as you hit those financial requirements, you can submit your residency application regardless of your age. To apply for this temporary residency, your first major step is to gather and legally certify your documents. Any document originating from your home country must be legally certified. That typically means getting an apostille or formal legalization by the Paraguayan consulate. And here's an absolute must. All documents not in Spanish must be officially translated by a certified translator. Your essentials will include passport, the original and a notarized photocopy, vital records, your birth certificate, apostilled, legally certified and officially translated, and your marriage or divorce certificate, if applicable. Police clearance. You'll need a recent criminal record certificate from your country of origin and any country you've lived in for the last 5 to 10 years. These must also be apostilled and legally certified. Proof of retirement income. Official, apostilled, and legally certified documentation showing the amount and, critically, the lifelong nature of your pension or retirement fund. A recent letter from your bank, generally not older than 6 months. A sworn statement, typically prepared by a local notary in Paraguay, confirming your adherence to local laws. You must travel to Paraguay to submit your application in person and complete all the local procedures. It's truly a smart move to hire a local immigration lawyer or facilitator for assistance with coordinating appointments. They make this process much smoother. Once you're in the country, you'll need to gather a few more local documents, such as a medical certificate issued by a licensed doctor right there in Paraguay, a certificate of life and residence issued by the local police station, your Interpol certificate from the regional Interpol office in Asuncion, your Paraguayan police records from the National Police Identification Department. Once all the documents are perfectly prepared, you then submit your completed application to DGM in Asuncion, the Directorate General of Migration. Under the current migration law, enacted in late 2022, the process kicks off with a temporary residency permit, which is valid for 2 years. After you've held that temporary residency for 2 full years, you are then eligible to apply to convert it to permanent residency. Finally, whether you obtain temporary or permanent residency, once your permit is approved, you absolutely must apply for the Paraguayan National ID card, known as the Cédula. This card is non-negotiable. It's essential for virtually all day-to-day activities, including basic necessities like opening a bank account, getting a job, renting property, and obtaining a Paraguayan driver's license. Moving to any new country requires a thorough reality check, and Paraguay, fantastic as it is certainly not perfect. Here are a few things you need to seriously think about. The language barrier. The English language environment here is quite limited. You'll absolutely need to learn Spanish or Guarani to navigate daily life outside of the main expat bubbles. Infrastructure issues. Once you leave the capital, Asuncion, and the other major cities, be prepared. The infrastructure can be less developed, meaning rougher roads and occasional utility hiccups. The relaxed pace trade-off. While the overall pace of life is wonderfully relaxed, this can sometimes translate into a frustrating level of bureaucracy and slow progress. You'll definitely need to practice your patience. The heat. You might not appreciate Paraguay's subtropical weather. We're talking about summers that get extremely hot and humid. If you hate the heat, this is a major factor. Safety check. Even though Paraguay is generally safer than some of its neighbors, petty crime can still be an issue in cities. You'll need to practice common sense safety and street smarts. So, if you're seriously considering a move to Paraguay, your first step must be evaluating whether you can genuinely tolerate these drawbacks. We have provided links regarding Paraguay's politics, history, culture, and tourism in the description below, so feel free to click those and learn more. Alternatively, if you're looking for different options, maybe more affordable real estate investment, or pursuing a digital nomad visa or rentista visa, you might want to check out our videos on Colombia and Ecuador, as those countries may offer a better experience for your needs. Finally, do you want more content like this? If the answer is yes, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.